The dawn mist hung low over the river when Grusha first came to bathe, her scarred hands trembling as she knelt at the water's edge, and she did not notice the human man watching from the farmhouse window until it was far too late to run. She had been hiding in the forest for 3 weeks now, ever since her clan had driven her out for refusing to kill the human child they had captured during a border raid. The shame still burned in her chest, not for saving the child, but for the disappointment she had seen in her mother's eyes before the stones began to fly. Orcs did not show mercy to humans. Orcs did not question the clan's justice. Orcs certainly did not weep over it afterward, yet Grusha had done all three. The river ran clear and cold through the valley, cutting between dense forest on one side and cultivated farmland on the other. She had discovered it 4 days ago while searching for clean water, her skin caked with dirt, and her clothes stiff with sweat and blood from an encounter with wolves. The location was dangerous, too close to human habitation, but she was desperate. Her reflection in the water showed a creature she barely recognized, her green skin dulled with grime, her black hair matted into tangles, her small tusks the only clean part of her, because she worried at them with her tongue when she was anxious. She had chosen Dawn because humans were lazy creatures, or so her clan had always taught her. They would still be sleeping in their warm beds, dreaming their soft dreams. She would have time to wash quickly and disappear back into the forest before anyone spotted her. But Nathan Garrett had been awake for an hour already, checking on a sick calf in the barn when he saw the figure moving through the pre-dawn darkness toward his river. His first instinct was to grab his rifle, his second to call for his dog, but something made him pause. The figure moved carefully, cautiously, like something wounded or afraid. When the rising sun caught her profile, he saw the green skin, the pointed ears, the tusks, and his hand tightened on the window frame. An orc. A female orc alone on his land. Every story he had ever heard told him she was dangerous, that orcs were savage and cruel, that they killed without mercy and ate human flesh when the mood struck them. But those stories also said orcs traveled in warbands, loud and fearless, taking what they wanted. This orc looked like she was trying to disappear into the landscape itself, her shoulders hunched, her movements quick and furtive. Grusha stripped off her tattered leather vest and torn shirt, hissing through her teeth at the pain in her ribs where a wolf had caught her. The bruising had turned spectacular shades of purple and yellow across her green skin. She waded into the river up to her knees, gasping at the cold, and began to scrub at her arms with handfuls of coarse sand from the riverbed. Nathan watched her wash, and something uncomfortable twisted in his chest. She was thin, too thin, her ribs visible even from this distance. The way she kept glancing around reminded him of a deer in hunting season, alert for any threat. When she raised her arms to scrub at her neck, he saw the scars crossing her back, old wounds that had healed rough and raised. He made his decision without fully understanding why. Moving quietly through his house, he gathered a bar of the lavender soap his late wife had made, still fragrant after 2 years, and one of the thick wool towels from the linen chest. His hands hesitated over the towel, remembering Margaret folding it, her clever fingers crisp and efficient. Then he shook his head and carried both items outside. The morning air was cool and fresh, smelling of growing things and rich earth. He walked down to the river's edge, his boots crunching on the gravel loud enough to announce his presence without being threatening. The orc woman spun toward him, water streaming from her hair, her amber eyes wide and wild. She had her knife in her hand before he could blink, though he noticed her hand shook as she held it. "Peace," Nathan said, holding up both hands to show them empty except for the soap and towel. "I mean you no harm." Grusha stared at him, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. A human man, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair going gray at the temples and eyes the color of summer storms. He wore simple farmer's clothes, homespun and mended, and his face was weathered by sun and wind. Not young, perhaps 40 winters, but strong-looking. Dangerous. "Stay back," she said, and hated how her voice cracked. "I have no quarrel with you, human. I will leave your land." "You are welcome to the river," Nathan said carefully, taking a single step closer and setting the soap and towel on a flat rock near the bank. "I thought you might find these useful. The water's cold this time of year. You will want to dry off quickly." He turned and walked away before she could respond, his stride steady and unhurried, as if leaving gifts for strange orcs was something he did every morning. Grusha stood frozen in the water for a long moment after he disappeared into the farmhouse, her knife still raised, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Humans did not give orcs gifts. Humans did not offer orcs welcome. Humans certainly did not walk away calmly, trusting an armed orc at their back. She waited, watching the farmhouse for any sign of treachery, any hint that he was returning with weapons or friends. The sun climbed higher, warming the air, and still nothing happened. Finally, moving in quick, jerky steps like a wild thing approaching a trap, she waded to the bank and picked up the soap. It smelled like flowers, like spring meadows and gentle things. The scent made her throat tight with an emotion she could not name. She turned the bar over in her hands, seeing the care that had gone into making it, the way it had been shaped and smoothed. This was not rough lye soap for scrubbing floors. This was something precious. Grusha looked toward the farmhouse again, then back at the soap. She should leave. She should run far from this place and never return. But the river was clean and the location was good, far from any roads, hidden by trees. And she was so very tired of running. She used the soap carefully, sparingly, working it through her filthy hair and across her skin. The lather was rich and thick, cutting through the grime as if it were nothing. When she emerged from the river, she dried herself with the towel, which was softer than anything she had touched in months. Years, perhaps. Orc clans did not believe in softness. She left the towel folded neatly on the rock, the soap placed on top of it, and melted back into the forest like smoke. Nathan found them there an hour later when he came to check, the towel damp but carefully arranged, the soap barely used. He had expected her to take them both. The fact that she had not told him something important, though he was not quite sure what. The next morning, Grusha returned to the river at dawn. She told herself it was because the location was good, because she needed clean water and a place to wash. She told herself it had nothing to do with the soap and towel, which she had thought about constantly since leaving them behind. The items were still on the rock where she had left them, but now there was also a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Grusha approached it like she might approach a sleeping bear, every muscle tense and ready to flee. When she unwrapped it, she found bread and cheese still fresh, and 2 apples that looked like they had been polished. Her hands shook as she held the food. When had she last eaten bread? Real bread, not the hard travel cakes her clan made. The smell alone made her dizzy with hunger. She ate one of the apples right there, too desperate to wait, the sweet juice running down her chin. She had forgotten food could taste like this, could be something other than fuel to keep the body moving. Nathan watched from his window again, and felt an unfamiliar satisfaction when he saw her eat. She looked half-starved, and he had food going to waste in his cellar. Margaret had always kept a generous pantry, and he had never learned to cook for just one person. It made sense to share. It was practical. He did not examine why he smiled when the orc woman wrapped the remaining food carefully in the cloth and tucked it into her bag before bathing. A pattern developed over the following days. Grusha would come at dawn, moving through the mist like a green-skinned ghost. There would be soap and a towel on the rock, and usually food. Sometimes bread and cheese, sometimes cold meat pie, once a small jar of honey that made her nearly weep with the pleasure of it. She would bathe, eat whatever he had left, and then disappear into the forest. She never took the towel or soap with her. She never left anything in return. But she always folded the towel carefully and placed the soap on top of it, a small gesture of respect that made Nathan's chest feel warm. By the second week, she began to linger a little longer, washing more thoroughly, sometimes sitting on the bank to let the sun dry her hair. Nathan found himself watching for her each morning, listening for the soft splash of her entering the water. He told himself he was just being cautious, just keeping watch on potential danger. But he knew he was lying. On the 15th morning, he found courage he had not known he still possessed and walked down to the river while she was there. Grusha saw him coming and tensed, but she did not run. She was dressed, at least, having finished her bathing, her hair still damp and hanging loose around her shoulders. She stood on the bank with her arms at her sides, her chin lifted despite the fear in her eyes. "Thank you for the food," she said, because the words had been burning in her throat for days and she could hold them in no longer. "You did not have to do that. You were hungry," Nathan said simply. "I had food. It seemed wasteful not to share. Humans do not share with orcs. This human does." They looked at each other across 10 feet of morning air, two lonely creatures who had stumbled into each other's orbits and did not quite know what to do about it. "My name is Nathan Garrett," he said finally. "This is my farm. You are welcome to use the river as long as you need to." Grusha felt something shift in her chest, some small wall beginning to crack. "Grusha," she said quietly. "My name is Grusha." "Grusha," he repeated, and the name sounded strange in his human mouth but not unpleasant. "Are you living in the forest?" She nodded stiffly, waiting for him to order her off his land to threaten her with authorities or weapons. "That must be difficult," he said instead. "Cold at night now that autumn is coming. I am fine. I am sure you are." His tone was gentle, not mocking. "But if you ever need shelter from a storm, there is a barn. The old one on the north side of the property. It is weather-tight and there is hay for bedding. No one uses it anymore." Grusha stared at him. "Why would you offer this?" Nathan considered the question carefully. "Because everyone deserves a dry place to sleep," he said finally. "And because you have been respectful of my property and my privacy. That earns consideration. I am an orc, I noticed." There was the faintest hint of humor in his voice. "Does that mean you do not deserve shelter?" She had no answer for that. Every lesson of her life told her that yes, orcs were different. Orcs were strong enough to endure what humans could not. Orcs did not need softness or comfort. But she was so tired, and the thought of a dry barn with hay for bedding made her want to cry. "Thank you," she whispered. Nathan nodded and turned to go, then paused. "There is stew cooking in the house. It will be ready in an hour. I always make too much. If you wanted to come to the kitchen door, I could give you a proper bowl of it, hot." He left before she could respond, before he could see the tears that finally spilled down her green cheeks. Grusha did not go to the kitchen door that day. The invitation felt too dangerous, too much like stepping across a line she could not uncross. But that night, when rain began to fall in heavy sheets, she made her way through the darkness to the old barn he had mentioned. It was exactly as he had described, weather-tight and clean, with fresh hay that smelled sweet and dry. There was also, she discovered, a lantern hanging by the door with flint beside it, and several old but serviceable blankets folded on a shelf. A bucket of clean water sat in the corner, covered with cloth. He had prepared this for her. Had taken time from his work to make this place ready, for an orc he barely knew, for no reason she could fathom. Grusha curled up in the hay with the blankets wrapped around her and listened to the rain drum on the roof. And for the first time in months, She felt something that might have been safety. She returned to the river the next morning despite the rain and found Nathan there, setting out the soap and towel as usual. "The barn was perfect," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "Thank you, I have never. No one has ever." "I am glad it suited," Nathan said. "You are welcome to use it as long as you need." "I should not accept this. People would be angry if they knew you were helping me. Let me worry about people." He hesitated, then added, "The offer of stew stands too. I was not trying to trap you or trick you. I just thought you might be tired of cold meals." Grusha looked at him, this human man with his graying hair and storm-colored eyes, who kept offering kindness like it was the simplest thing in the world. "Why?" she asked desperately. "Why are you doing this?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching the rain disturb the surface of the river. "2 years ago, my wife Margaret died of a fever. The same fever took our daughter a day later. She was only 6. His voice was steady, but Grusha could hear the pain beneath it, old and deep. "For a long time after, I did not care much about anything. I worked the farm because the animals needed tending. I ate because the body requires it, but I did not really live. Then one morning I saw you at the river, and you looked so afraid, so alone, and I thought maybe being kind to you might remind me how to be human again." The honesty of it stole her breath. Grusha swallowed hard against the tightness in her throat. "I am sorry for your loss. No parent should have to bury a child." "No," he agreed softly, "they should not." They stood together in the rain, and something understanding passed between them, a recognition of shared grief. Grusha's clan had cast her out for showing mercy. Nathan had lost everything to simple cruelty of fate. They were both alone, both trying to find their way through the wilderness of loss. "I will come for stew," Grusha said quietly, "if the offer is still open." Nathan smiled, and it was the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. "It is always open." That evening, Grusha approached the farmhouse with her heart in her throat. The kitchen door was on the back side, away from any roads, which she appreciated. Nathan must have planned that too. When she knocked, he opened it immediately, as if he had been waiting. "Come in," he said, stepping back to give her room. The kitchen was warm and bright, lit by lanterns and a cheerful fire in the hearth. It smelled like heaven, like cooking meat and vegetables and fresh bread. Grusha stood awkwardly in the doorway, suddenly aware of how large she was, how her head nearly brushed the top of the doorframe, how her orcish features must look in this very human space. "Sit, please," Nathan said, gesturing to the table. "I promise my cooking is not terrible, though it is not as good as Margaret's was." The table was already set with 2 bowls, 2 spoons, 2 cups. He had been expecting her, had hoped she would come. Grusha sat carefully in one of the chairs, testing to make sure it would hold her weight. Orcs were heavier than humans, denser muscle and thicker bones. Nathan ladled stew into her bowl, a generous portion thick with meat and vegetables, and set a small loaf of bread beside it. When he sat down across from her, she waited to see if he would say some kind of human blessing over the food, but he just picked up his spoon and began to eat. Grusha took a bite and nearly moaned. It was good, rich and savory, better than anything she remembered from her clan. "This is wonderful," she said. "You are just hungry," Nathan replied, but he looked pleased. "Eat your fill. There is plenty." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the clink of spoons and the crackle of the fire. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside was warm and safe and peaceful. "May I ask you a question?" Nathan said finally. Grusha tensed, but nodded. "Why are you alone? Orcs usually travel in groups, from what I have heard." She had known the question would come eventually. Grusha set down her spoon and looked at her hands, at the scars on her knuckles. "My clan cast me out. I refused to kill a human child during a raid. Children should not die for adult wars. My mother said I brought shame to the clan, that I was weak. They drove me out with stones." Nathan's face had gone very still. "You saved a child." "I let a child go," Grusha corrected. "I did not save anyone. I just could not bring myself to murder something so small and helpless." "That was brave." "It was foolish. Now I have no clan, no family, no place in the world." "Orcs are not meant to be alone." "Neither are humans," Nathan said quietly. "But sometimes we end up that way regardless." Their eyes met across the table, and Grusha felt that crack in her chest widen a little more. This human understood. He knew what it was to be cast adrift, to lose everything that mattered. "You can stay in the barn as long as you like," Nathan said. "And you are welcome at my table any evening. I would appreciate the company if you would not mind providing it." "I would like that," Grusha admitted. "Very much." Thus began an autumn unlike any other in Grusha's life. She spent her days in the forest, hunting and gathering, learning the rhythms of this new territory. She had always been good at survival skills, and without the clan's constant demands and politics, she found she enjoyed the solitude of stalking deer through the woods, of finding edible plants and mushrooms. She brought her kills to Nathan, unable to accept his hospitality without offering something in return. He taught her how to smoke meat in his smokehouse, how to render fat for cooking, how to cure hides properly. In return, she helped with the heavier farm work, mending fences that needed orcish strength to set posts, clearing a field of stones that would have taken him weeks alone. Every evening she came to the kitchen door for dinner. They talked while they ate, carefully at first, then with growing ease. Nathan told her about the farm, about growing up in this valley, about Margaret and their daughter Emma. Grusha told him about orcish clans, about the harsh laws and harsher justice, about her mother who had been a great warrior and her father who had died fighting humans when she was young. "Did you hate humans?" Nathan asked one night. "Before." Grusha considered the question carefully. "I did not know enough about humans to hate them. We were taught you were weak and cowardly, that you stole land that belonged to orcs, that you killed our kind without mercy. But I never met a human before you. All I knew were stories. And now I know that humans can be kind, that they can be lonely, that they make very good stew." She smiled slightly, her small tusks catching the lamplight. "I know that at least one human has more honor than my entire clan." Nathan looked down at his bowl. "I am not so honorable. I am just a farmer trying to get through each day. You offered shelter to a stranger who could have killed you in your sleep. You shared food and warmth with someone your people see as an enemy. That is honor, Nathan Garrett." He had no answer for that, but his ears went a little red, and Grusha found herself charmed by the sight. As autumn deepened into late October, their friendship deepened as well. Grusha found herself thinking about Nathan at odd moments during the day, wondering what he was doing, looking forward to their evening meals with an intensity that surprised her. She told herself it was just because she had been alone for so long that anyone would seem appealing after months of isolation. But she knew she was lying. The truth was that Nathan made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced. He listened when she talked, really listened, his full attention on her words. He noticed small things, like when she was tired or when her ribs still pained her. He left her favorite foods on the rock by the river without being asked. He laughed at her jokes, even the ones that did not quite translate from orcish humor. And he was handsome, she admitted to herself late one night in the barn. Not in the way orcs measured such things, but in his own fashion. She liked his steady eyes and work-roughened hands, the way silver threaded through his dark hair, the quiet strength in his movements. She liked how he smelled, like wood smoke and earth and growing things. She liked him, and that was terrifying. Nathan was fighting his own battle with unwanted feelings. He had not expected to care about the orc woman. He had offered help out of loneliness and a desire to do something decent, not out of any romantic interest. But somewhere between teaching her to smoke meat and listening to her laugh at his story about a runaway pig, things had changed. He found himself watching for her in the mornings, disappointed on the rare days when weather kept her away. He took extra care with dinner, trying recipes he had not attempted since Margaret died, wanting to impress her. He noticed how gracefully she moved despite her size, how her eyes crinkled when she smiled, how her voice went soft when she talked about things that mattered to her. He noticed, and he felt guilty for noticing, as if appreciating Grusha was somehow a betrayal of Margaret's memory. But Margaret had been gone for 2 years, and he was still alive, still breathing, still capable of feeling. And what he was beginning to feel for Grusha was complicated and strange and entirely real. The crisis came in early November, when the first snow began to fall. Nathan had gone into the nearby town of Millbrook for supplies, something he did once a month. He had left early, before dawn, expecting to be back by evening. But the weather turned bad, snow coming down heavy and fast, and he was delayed. Grusha waited for him at the kitchen door as usual, growing increasingly worried as the sky darkened and he did not appear. She knew he had gone to town, had mentioned it the night before, but surely he should be back by now. The snow was getting worse, the wind picking up, visibility dropping to almost nothing. She paced in front of the farmhouse, her stomach tight with anxiety. What if something had happened? What if his horse had thrown a shoe or the wagon had broken down? What if he was hurt, alone in the storm? Finally, unable to bear waiting any longer, Grusha set out into the blizzard toward town. She was stronger than any human, better able to handle the cold and the wind. If Nathan was in trouble, she would find him. The storm was brutal, snow driving into her face, wind trying to knock her off her feet. But Grusha had been raised in the northern mountains, had endured worse weather than this. She bent into the wind and pushed forward, following the road by memory and instinct. She found Nathan 2 miles from the farm, struggling to lead his horse through a drift that came up to his thighs. The wagon had indeed broken a wheel, and he was trying to save what supplies he could carry. When he saw her emerging from the snow like some kind of vision, his face went slack with shock. "Grusha, what are you doing here? Looking for you, you fool," she had to shout to be heard over the wind. "You should have been home hours ago." "The wheel broke. I could not just leave everything. The supplies do not matter." "You matter." The words came out fiercer than she intended, raw with the fear she had been holding back. Nathan stared at her, snow gathering on his shoulders, his face reddening from more than just cold. "You came out in this storm for me. Of course I did." Grusha pushed past him to the wagon, quickly assessing what could be saved and what had to be abandoned. "We need to get you home before you freeze. Can you ride the horse?" "Yes, but the supplies, I will carry what I can." "Nathan, please." "We need to go now." The urgency in her voice convinced him. He mounted the horse while Grusha loaded herself down with sacks of flour and grain, slinging them over her shoulders with ease that would have taken 2 strong men. She kept one hand on the horse's bridle, guiding them back toward the farm through the whiteout conditions. The journey took over an hour, slow and brutal, but finally the dark shape of the farmhouse emerged from the snow. Grusha led the horse to the barn, helped Nathan down, and began stripping the animal of its tack. Her hands moved efficiently, taking care of the horse first as any sensible farmer would. "You are shaking," Nathan said, and she realized he was right. Now that the crisis was over, the cold was catching up with her. "I am fine." "You are not fine. You are half frozen and you went out in a blizzard without proper clothing because I was an idiot who tried to save a few supplies." His voice was rough, angry at himself. Come to the house. We need to get you warm. I should not, Grusha, please. He caught her hand, his fingers cold but strong. Please come inside. She let him lead her to the farmhouse, through the kitchen door and into the blessed warmth. Nathan sat her down by the fire and began piling blankets around her, his movements almost frantic. He put a kettle on for tea, stoked the fire higher, brought her dry clothes that had belonged to Margaret. I am sorry, he said, kneeling in front of her. I am so sorry. You could have died out there looking for me. So could you, Grusha pointed out. That is why I went. But why? Why would you risk yourself for me? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Grusha looked at him, this human man who had shown her more kindness in 2 months than her clan had in 20 years, who made her laugh and made her feel safe and made her want things she had no right to want. Because you matter to me, she said quietly. Because the thought of you hurt or dead made me feel like I could not breathe. Because in 2 months, you have become more important to me than anyone in my entire life, and I do not know what to do with that. Nathan's breath caught. His hands tightened on the blanket he was holding. Grusha, I know it is foolish, she continued, needing to get the words out before courage failed her. I know humans and orcs do not, that there is no future in feeling this way, but I cannot seem to stop. Every day I tell myself I should leave, should find somewhere else to go, but I cannot make myself do it because every day I want to see you. And I am sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but you asked, and I cannot lie to you. For a long moment, Nathan just looked at her, his eyes wide and stunned. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached up and touched her face, his calloused fingers gentle against her green skin. You are not the only one feeling foolish things, he said hoarsely. I have been trying not to care about you for weeks now, trying to tell myself it is just loneliness, just grief, just anything other than what it actually is. But when I saw you in that storm, when I realized you had come looking for me, risked yourself for me. He swallowed hard. Grusha, I am falling in love with you, maybe I have already fallen. And you are right, it is foolish and impossible and everyone would tell us we are mad, but I cannot seem to care about any of that. Grusha felt tears prick her eyes. You cannot love me, I am an orc. I noticed, he said, echoing his words from their first real conversation, and there was that hint of humor she loved so much. Does that mean I am not allowed to love you? It means loving me is complicated and dangerous and will make your life difficult. My life is already difficult. My life has been empty and gray for 2 years, and then you appeared at my river and started washing with my soap, and suddenly, I remembered what it felt like to care about something. Someone. His thumb stroked across her cheek, wiping away a tear she had not realized had fallen. I do not care if it is complicated, I care about you, Nathan. She turned her face into his palm, her tusks brushing his wrist. I care about you too, so much it frightens me. Then let us be frightened together. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft and careful, a question more than a demand. Grusha froze for a heartbeat, then kissed him back, her hand coming up to cradle the back of his head. It was nothing like she had imagined kissing would be. It was better. It was warm and sweet and tasted like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not in the barn, here with me, stay. People will talk. They will cause trouble. Let them talk. This is my land, my home. You are welcome in it for as long as you want to be here. You might lose friends, customers. People might refuse to do business with you. I will manage. I have been managing alone for 2 years. If having you here means I lose some bigots, well, I am not sure I want their business anyway. Grusha pulled back enough to look him in the eyes. Are you certain? I do not want you to regret this. I am more certain of this than I have been of anything since Margaret died, Nathan said firmly. You make me happy, Grusha. You make me want to live again, not just survive. That is worth fighting for." She kissed him again, harder this time, pouring all her longing and fear and desperate hope into it. When they broke apart, she was smiling despite the tears on her face. "Then I will stay." That night, Grusha slept in the farmhouse for the first time. In the guest room, Nathan insisted on giving her until they figured out what came next. She lay in a real bed with real sheets and listened to the storm howl outside, and felt safer than she had since leaving her clan. Down the hall, Nathan lay in his own bed and stared at the ceiling, his heart full of wonder and terror in equal measure. He had not expected to love again, had not thought himself capable of it after losing Margaret and Emma. But Grusha had walked into his life and changed everything, and he could not bring himself to regret it. The storm blew itself out by morning, leaving the world covered in pristine white snow. Grusha woke to the smell of cooking food and found Nathan making breakfast, frying eggs and thick slices of bacon. "I thought we could celebrate not dying in a blizzard," he said with a smile. They ate together at the kitchen table, shoulders brushing, and it felt natural and right in a way that made Grusha's chest ache. This was what she had always wanted without knowing it, this simple domestic peace, someone to share meals and quiet mornings with. But she knew the outside world would not leave them in peace for long. The trouble came a week later, when a neighbor named Thomas Green stopped by to borrow some tools. He found Grusha in the yard, splitting firewood with the easy strength of her kind, and his face went pale then red with rage. "Garrett," he shouted toward the house. "Garrett, get out here." Nathan emerged from the barn, immediately reading the situation. "Thomas, what can I do for you? You can explain why there is an orc on your property." Thomas pointed at Grusha like she was a dangerous animal. "Have you lost your mind? Grusha is my guest," Nathan said calmly, "and she is welcome here." "Your guest? Orcs are not guests, they are monsters. They kill our people. This orc saved my life during the blizzard last week," Nathan replied, his voice hardening. "She risked herself to find me when I was stranded, helped me get home safely. She has been nothing but respectful and helpful since arriving here. So yes, she is my guest, and I will thank you to speak civilly or leave my property." Thomas sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. "Do you know what people will say? What they already are saying? That you have lost your wits, that grief has made you mad, that you are consorting with the enemy. People can say whatever they like. This is my land. It is an abomination. Humans and orcs should not mix. Enough." Nathan's voice cracked like a whip. "I did not ask for your opinion on my choices, Thomas. If you came to borrow tools, you may do so and leave. If you came to insult my friend, then you can get off my property now." Thomas stared at him, shocked into silence. Then his eyes narrowed with malice. "You will regret this, Garrett, mark my words." He stalked off, leaving Nathan and Grusha standing in tense silence. "I am sorry," Grusha said quietly. "I did not mean to cause trouble for you. You did not cause anything. Thomas Green has been a narrow-minded fool for as long as I have known him." Nathan reached out and took her hand, squeezing gently. "I meant what I said. You are welcome here." But Thomas Green was as good as his word. Within days, the story had spread through Millbrook and the surrounding farms. Nathan Garrett had gone mad with grief and taken in an orc. Some people thought it was pitiable. Others thought it was dangerous. The general consensus was that something needed to be done. Nathan found his usual customers suddenly unavailable when he tried to sell his grain. The blacksmith refused to shoe his horses. The general store owner served him but would not meet his eyes and charged higher prices than usual. Grusha watched it happening and felt her heart break a little more each day. Nathan was being punished for showing her kindness, for caring about her. The fair and right thing would be to leave, to disappear back into the forest and let his life return to normal. But when she suggested it one evening, Nathan shook his head firmly. No, I will not let bigots dictate how I live my life or who I care about. Nathan, they are destroying your livelihood. You need these people. I need you more. He cupped her face in his hands, looking into her eyes with fierce determination. I have already lost everyone I loved once. I will not voluntarily lose you because some people cannot see past their prejudices. We will figure this out together. How? How can we possibly make this work? I do not know yet, but we will find a way. His faith in them, in her, was humbling and terrifying. Grusha kissed him gently, trying to pour all her gratitude and love into the gesture. They had not spoken of love aloud since the night of the blizzard, but it was there between them, growing stronger every day. The solution came from an unexpected source. 3 weeks after Thomas Green's visit, a young woman appeared at the farm riding a sturdy pony. She was small and dark-haired, with intelligent eyes and ink-stained fingers. Mr. Garrett, my name is Felicity Gordon. I am a teacher in Millbrook. May I speak with you? Nathan invited her into the kitchen where Grusha was making bread. Felicity's eyes widened slightly when she saw the orc, but she did not recoil or look afraid. Instead, she nodded politely. You must be Grusha. I have heard about you. Nothing good, I imagine, Grusha said dryly. Actually, I heard you saved Mr. Garrett's life during the blizzard. That sounds quite good to me. Felicity accepted the tea Nathan offered and sat at the table. I came because I have a proposition for you both. What kind of proposition? Nathan asked cautiously. The kind that might help with your current difficulties. Felicity took a sip of tea, organizing her thoughts. I have been teaching in Millbrook for 5 years now, and in that time I have noticed something. The hatred between humans and orcs is perpetuated by ignorance. We tell children that orcs are monsters without ever letting them meet one. Orcs tell their children that humans are weak cowards without ever letting them know us. Fear breeds in the absence of understanding. That is true, Grusha agreed slowly. I was taught many lies about humans. Exactly. Now, what if we changed that? What if we showed people that humans and orcs can coexist peacefully, that we can help each other, be friends, even be? She glanced between them with knowing eyes. Even be family. Nathan felt his ears heat. What are you suggesting? Let me bring my students here. Let them meet Grusha, talk to her, learn from her. Let them see that orcs are not monsters but people, with their own stories and struggles and dreams. And in return, perhaps Grusha could share what she knows about orcish culture, about survival skills, about the things her people value. Knowledge is the antidote to fear. Grusha's eyes had gone wide. You want me to teach human children? I want you to be yourself around them. To let them see you as you are, not as the stories paint you. You do not have to do anything special, just exist and be willing to answer questions. Felicity leaned forward, her expression earnest. I know this is asking a lot. I know you have every reason to distrust humans after how you have been treated. But I think this could help, not just with Mr. Garrett's reputation, but with the larger problem of human-orc relations. Nathan looked at Grusha, leaving the decision to her. This was not his risk to take. Grusha thought about the human child she had saved, the one whose life had cost her everything. She thought about Nathan and his quiet courage in the face of prejudice. She thought about what the world could be if people stopped teaching children to hate. I will do it, she said quietly. If it might help, I will try. Felicity's face lit up with a brilliant smile. Thank you. I promise you will not regret this. The first group of students came the following week, 8 children between the ages of 7 and 12, all wide-eyed and nervous. They clustered around Felicity like chicks around a hen, staring at Grusha with a mixture of fear and fascination. Good morning, Grusha said, keeping her voice gentle. My name is Grusha. Miss Gordon says you wanted to meet me. A brave little girl with red braids raised her hand. Are you really an orc? I am. Do you eat people? No, I eat the same things you do, meat, vegetables, bread. I am actually quite fond of honey. The children giggled nervously at that, and the tension eased a fraction. Another child, a boy with freckles, asked, "Why are you green?" "Why are you pink?" Grusha countered gently. "Different people are different colors. Orcs have green skin, humans have skin in many shades. It is just how we are made." "Are those tusks?" asked another girl, pointing at Grusha's mouth. "They are. All orcs have them. They are like your teeth, just shaped differently." "Can I touch one?" Grusha blinked in surprise, then knelt down to the girl's level. Gently. The girl reached out with one small finger and touched the tip of Grusha's tusk, her eyes huge with wonder. "It is smooth, like a stone from the river." "I polish them sometimes when I am thinking," Grusha admitted, and the children laughed again, more relaxed now. The questions came faster after that, a flood of childish curiosity. What was it like to be so strong? Could she really carry a whole deer by herself? What did orcs do for fun? Did she have a family? Why was she living on Mr. Garrett's farm? Grusha answered as honestly as she could, careful to use words they would understand. When they asked about her clan, she told them simply that her family had disagreed with some of her choices, and she had decided to leave. The children accepted this easily, with the flexible understanding of young minds. Nathan watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride. Grusha was patient and kind with the children, never talking down to them, taking their questions seriously. And the children, once they got past their initial fear, were fascinated by her. When it came time for the children to leave, the red-braided girl hugged Grusha's leg shyly. "Will you be here next time we visit?" "If you would like me to be," Grusha said softly. "I would. You are nice." Not scary at all. After the children left, Grusha sat heavily on the porch steps, emotionally exhausted but smiling. Nathan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You were wonderful with them," he said. "They were easy to talk to, curious but not cruel, not like adults." Children have not learned to hate yet. That is something we teach them, unfortunately. Then perhaps we can teach them something different. Grusha leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you really think this will help?" "I think it is a start, and starts are important." The visits became a regular occurrence. Every week, Felicity brought her students to the farm, and every week Grusha taught them something new. She showed them how to track animals in the forest, how to identify edible plants, how to start a fire without flint. She taught them orcish words and songs, told them stories from her childhood, explained the complicated clan structures and traditions of her people. And slowly, word began to spread that the orc at the Garrett farm was not a monster but a person, someone who laughed and joked and was endlessly patient with children. Parents started coming with their children, curious to see this phenomenon for themselves. Most were wary at first, but Grusha's gentle demeanor and obvious affection for the children won many of them over. Not everyone was convinced. There were still those who muttered about abomination and unnatural mixing, but the tide of public opinion was beginning to shift. Nathan's business situation improved gradually. A few of his old customers returned, sheepish and apologetic. New customers appeared, people who appreciated what he and Grusha were trying to do. The blacksmith, a practical man who cared more about good metalwork than politics, came to shoe the horses and stayed for dinner, engaging Grusha in a long conversation about orcish metalworking techniques. As autumn turned to winter, Grusha and Nathan settled into a life together that felt increasingly like a real partnership. She helped with the heavy work around the farm. He taught her about crop rotation and animal husbandry. They cooked meals together, talking and laughing. They sat by the fire in the evenings, sometimes reading aloud to each other, sometimes just enjoying the comfortable silence. And slowly, carefully, their physical relationship deepened as well. Nathan had not been with anyone since Margaret, and Grusha had never been with anyone at all. Orcish clans arranged matings based on bloodlines and strength, with little room for romance or choice. What she had with Nathan was entirely new territory. Their first real kiss, the one that led to more, happened on a cold December night. They had been sitting by the fire, and Grusha had been telling a story about her childhood, about sneaking away from clan duties to watch birds in the forest. Nathan had been watching her face in the firelight, captivated by the way her eyes glowed when she talked about things she loved. "What?" she asked, noticing his stare. "You are beautiful," he said simply. Grusha ducked her head, unused to compliments. "I am green and tusked and half again your size. I am many things, but beautiful is not one of them. You are to me." Nathan reached out and traced the line of her jaw with gentle fingers. "I love your green skin. I love your tusks. I love how strong you are, how you can carry things I could not budge. I love your laugh and your kindness and the way you are patient with children who ask the same question 5 times. You are beautiful, Grusha, the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." She turned her face into his palm, blinking back tears. "How can you say such things? Because they are true." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. "May I kiss you? You have kissed me before." "Not like I want to kiss you now." Understanding dawned in her eyes, along with nervousness and desire. "I have never, with anyone. I do not know how. We will figure it out together," Nathan promised, echoing his words from months ago. "We do not have to rush, we have time." But when their lips met, slow and sweet, the kiss deepened naturally, inevitably. Nathan's hands cupped her face and Grusha pulled him closer, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite their differences. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Come upstairs with me," Nathan whispered. "Only if you want to, only if you are ready, but Grusha, I want you. I want to be with you in every way." "I want that too," she admitted. "I am frightened, but I want it. Then let us be frightened together." He took her hand and led her upstairs to his bedroom, the room he had shared with Margaret years ago. For a moment, Grusha worried that she was trespassing on sacred ground, but Nathan seemed to sense her hesitation. "Margaret would want me to be happy," he said quietly. "She would want me to live, to love again. I will always remember her, always honor what we had. But she is gone and you are here, and what I feel for you does not diminish what I felt for her. Love is not a finite resource." Grusha nodded, understanding. Her clan would have called such thinking weak, but her clan was wrong about many things. What happened next was tender and fumbling and absolutely perfect. They learned each other slowly, with hands and mouths and whispered encouragement. Nathan was patient with her inexperience. Grusha was gentle with his long, dormant vulnerability. When they finally came together, it felt like a completion, like 2 lonely pieces finding their match. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, Grusha's head on Nathan's chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her green skin. "I love you," Nathan said into the darkness. "I should have said it before, but I love you, Grusha." "I love you too," she whispered back. "I did not know I could feel this way about anyone, but I love you, Nathan Garrett. I love you so much it scares me. Good scared or bad scared, good scared. The kind that makes you want to be brave." He kissed the top of her head, smiling against her hair. "Then be brave with me. Stay with me. Build a life with me here. I cannot imagine being anywhere else." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in longer than either could remember, neither of them had nightmares. The winter deepened, bringing heavy snows and bitter cold, but the farmhouse was warm and the barn was full of provisions. Grusha and Nathan worked side by side through the short days, caring for the animals, maintaining equipment, preparing for spring planting. Felicity's student visits continued even in the worst weather. the children undaunted by snow and cold. They adored Grusha now, fighting over who got to stand closest to her, begging for stories and lessons. The shy little red-haired girl, whose name was Annie, declared that she wanted to be just like Grusha when she grew up, strong and brave and kind. "You can be all those things without being an orc," Grusha told her gently. "But I want to be like you specifically," Annie insisted with the fierce certainty of childhood. It made Grusha's heart ache in the best way. In late January, as winter began its slow retreat, Thomas Green appeared at the farm again. This time he brought others with him, 5 men from town, all armed with clubs and grim expressions. Nathan saw them coming and stepped outside, positioning himself between them and the house where Grusha was cooking. "Thomas, gentlemen, what can I do for you?" "You can stop this madness, Garrett," Thomas said. "We have been patient, we have waited for you to come to your senses, but it has gone on too long. That creature needs to leave. Grusha is not leaving. This is her home. It is an abomination. You are living in sin with a monster, corrupting children by letting them near it. It has to end." "The only corruption here is in your narrow minds," Nathan said, his voice hard as iron. "Grusha has done nothing but help people. She saved my life, she has been kind to children, she has shared her knowledge freely. If you cannot see the value in that, the problem is with you, not her." "We did not come here to debate," one of the other men said. He was large and mean-looking, with a scar across his cheek. "We came to remove a threat to the community. You will not lay a hand on her. You cannot stop all of us, Garrett." Nathan's hand moved to the rifle he had brought outside, resting against the porch rail. "I can certainly try." The men tensed and the situation balanced on a knife's edge, ready to tip into violence. Then the door opened behind Nathan and Grusha stepped out. She had heard everything, and she would not let Nathan fight her battles alone. "I will go," she said quietly. "I do not want anyone to be hurt because of me." "No," Nathan said fiercely. "You are not leaving. Nathan, please, look at them. They will hurt you. I could not bear that. And I could not bear losing you." He turned to face her, his eyes blazing. "I lost my wife and daughter to something I could not control, something I could not fight. I will be damned if I lose you because of these bigoted fools. You are not going anywhere." "How touching," Thomas sneered. "The farmer thinks he can protect his pet orc." Grusha's hands clenched into fists. "I am no one's pet. And if you think you can take me easily, you are welcome to try. I did not wish to fight, but I will defend myself and this man if I must." She stepped forward, drawing herself up to her full height, and even armed with clubs the men took an unconscious step backward. Grusha was tall and powerfully built, and there was a dangerous light in her amber eyes now. "Wait." A new voice called out, and everyone turned to see Felicity Gordon running toward them through the snow, her skirts hiked up and her face flushed. Behind her came a steady stream of people, parents and children, families from town and neighboring farms. "Wait," Felicity said again, arriving breathless. "You cannot do this." "Stay out of this, Miss Gordon," Thomas said. "This does not concern you. It absolutely concerns me. It concerns all of us." She gestured to the people gathering around. "Grusha has been teaching our children, helping our community. She has shown us nothing but kindness and respect, and you want to drive her away because of prejudice and fear. She is an orc. She is a person." This came from Annie's mother, a stern-faced woman who stepped forward from the crowd. "My daughter has learned more from Grusha about courage and compassion than she has from any other teacher. I will not stand by and watch you harm someone who has been good to my child." "Nor will I," said another parent, and then another. The crowd was growing, and most of them looked angry, but not at Grusha. They were angry at Thomas and his men. The blacksmith was there, and several farmers, and even the general store owner looking ashamed of his earlier treatment of Nathan. You do not speak for this community, Thomas Green, Felicity said firmly. You speak only for your own hatred, but we will not let that hatred win. Grusha is welcome here, and anyone who tries to harm her will answer to all of us. Thomas looked around at the crowd, seeing his support evaporating and his face twisted with impotent rage. You are all fools. Consorting with orcs will bring nothing but ruin. The only ruin I see is the ruin of ignorance, the blacksmith said, and we have had enough of that. Go home, Thomas. You are not wanted here. The confrontation ended not with violence but with Thomas and his men slinking away, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. When they were gone, the crowd surged forward, people offering words of support and encouragement to Nathan and Grusha. Annie broke free from her mother and ran to hug Grusha around the waist. I am glad you did not leave. You are my favorite person. Grusha knelt down and hugged the little girl back, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. All of you, thank you. You are one of us now, Felicity said simply. The good parts of us, anyway. We do not abandon our own. That night, after everyone had left and the farm was quiet again, Nathan and Grusha sat together by the fire. She was still shaking slightly from the emotional intensity of the day. I thought they would make you send me away, she said. I was so afraid. I would never send you away. I meant what I said. I would rather fight the whole town than lose you. You would not have had to. The town came to fight for us instead. Grusha shook her head in wonder. I never imagined humans could be like that, so brave and kind. People are complicated, Nathan said. Capable of great cruelty but also great compassion. We get to choose which we will practice. He pulled her closer, kissing her temple. Today enough people chose compassion. That gives me hope. Me too. Winter slowly gave way to spring, and with the changing season came new beginnings. Nathan and Grusha worked the fields together, planting crops and tending the animals. She had a gift for farming, he discovered, an intuitive understanding of the land and growing things. Orcs were farmers once, she told him one day as they walked the newly planted fields. Long ago, before the wars, we grew wheat and barley, raised cattle and sheep. But the conflicts pushed us into the mountains, into harder lands where only raiding could sustain us. We forgot how to grow things and remembered only how to take them. Maybe you could teach orcish farming techniques to people here, Nathan suggested. If there were more exchange between our peoples, more trade and communication, maybe the hatred would fade. That is a beautiful dream. Dreams are important. They give us something to work toward. In April, on a day when the air smelled like flowers and fresh earth, Nathan took Grusha to a small grove of apple trees on the edge of his property. They were just beginning to bud, tiny green leaves unfurling toward the sun. Margaret and I planted these when we first bought the farm, he said. We dreamed of having orchards, of making cider and selling apples at market. We only managed this one grove before she got sick, but I have maintained it all these years. They are lovely, Grusha said, touching the rough bark of one tree gently. I wanted to bring you here because this place represents hope to me. Hope for the future, for growth, for sweet things that take time to cultivate. He took both her hands in his, looking into her eyes with such intensity it stole her breath. Grusha, I know we have not been together long. I know there are still people who will never accept us, but I also know that I love you more than I thought possible to love again. You have given me back my life, my joy, my purpose. I want to build a future with you. I want to plant orchards and raise animals and maybe, someday, have children who grow up knowing that love matters more than species or skin color. Grusha's eyes were wide, her heart pounding. Nathan, what are you saying? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, simple silver with a small green stone that matched her skin. I am saying I want to marry you if you will have me. I know it will not be legal, not officially, but I do not care about official. I care about commitment. I want to stand before whatever gods will listen and pledge myself to you, and I want you to pledge yourself to me. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours for as long as we both live. Grusha, will you marry me?" For a moment she could not speak, could not breathe, could only stare at him with tears streaming down her face. Then she laughed, bright and incredulous and full of joy, and pulled him into a fierce hug. "Yes," she said against his shoulder. "Yes, Nathan Garrett, I will marry you. I will be yours and you will be mine, and we will build something beautiful together." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. They kissed under the budding apple trees, and the world felt full of possibility. The wedding took place in late May, on a warm evening when the farm was at its most beautiful. They held it outdoors, in the meadow behind the barn, with wildflowers blooming in every direction and the sun setting in shades of gold and rose. Felicity officiated, having studied enough law to know that while the marriage would not be recognized by any human government, it could still be blessed and witnessed by their community. Nearly the whole town came, along with people from surrounding farms, all dressed in their best clothes and bearing gifts. Nathan wore his finest suit, the one he had married Margaret in, carefully stored and preserved. Grusha wore a dress that Felicity and several other women had made for her, simple but elegant, in a deep forest green that complemented her skin beautifully. Wildflowers were woven into her black hair, and she had polished her tusks until they gleamed. Annie was the flower girl, taking her duties very seriously as she scattered petals along the makeshift aisle. The blacksmith stood up with Nathan, and Felicity stood with Grusha, both grinning widely. When Nathan and Grusha stood before Felicity, hands joined, they were both trembling slightly. "We are gathered here today," Felicity began, her voice clear and strong, "to witness the union of two people who have shown us all what courage and love really mean. Nathan Garrett and Grusha, you come from different worlds, different peoples, but you have found in each other something rare and precious. You have chosen each other despite every obstacle, every prejudice, every voice that said this was impossible. And in doing so, you have made us all braver, made us all better." She looked at Nathan. "Nathan, do you take Grusha to be your wife, to love and honor and cherish in joy and in sorrow, in plenty and in want, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Nathan said, his voice rough with emotion. "With all my heart, I do." Felicity turned to Grusha. "Grusha, do you take Nathan to be your husband, to love and honor and cherish in joy and in sorrow, in plenty and in want, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Grusha said, tears streaming freely down her face. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by this community, and by the love you have shown each other, I declare you married. You may seal this union with a kiss." Nathan and Grusha kissed as the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. When they broke apart, both laughing through their tears, they were husband and wife in every way that mattered. The celebration lasted late into the night. There was food and music and dancing, children running through the meadow chasing fireflies, adults sharing stories and laughter. The blacksmith played a fiddle, and others joined in with various instruments, creating a joyful noise that rang across the valley. Nathan danced with Grusha under the stars, her strong arms around his neck, his hands at her waist, both of them swaying to music and overwhelmed with happiness. "I never thought I would have this," Grusha whispered. "A home, a family, someone who loves me just as I am." "You deserve all of it and more," Nathan told her. "You deserve the world, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to give it to you. You already have. You gave me yourself, and that is everything." They kissed again, long and slow, and the stars seemed to shine brighter overhead. As summer arrived in full force, Nathan and Grusha settled into married life with easy grace. They had already been living as partners for months, so the transition was natural and smooth. But there was something different now, something deeper in the way they moved together through each day. Grusha continued teaching the children who came to visit, and began holding additional sessions for adults who wanted to learn tracking, foraging, and wilderness survival. Her classes became popular, drawing people from farther and farther away. Some came because they genuinely wanted to learn. Others came out of curiosity to see the orc who had married a human. Nathan expanded the farm, using Grusha's strength and knowledge to tackle projects he had never dared attempt alone. They built a new barn, dug a proper well, cleared additional fields. The farm thrived under their joint care, producing more than Nathan had seen in years. News of their marriage spread beyond Millbrook, carried by traders and travelers. Most of the reactions were negative, shock and disgust that a human would bind himself to an orc. But there were a precious few, who heard the story and felt hope. If a human and an orc could find love and build a life together, maybe there was hope for peace between their peoples. In late summer, a letter arrived that would change everything. It was from an orc named Kushka, who identified herself as Grusha's mother. Grusha's hands shook as she read it, her face going pale under her green skin. Nathan stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. The letter was brief and written in crude human script, as if the writer had labored over each word. "Daughter, I have heard news of what you have done. The entire clan has heard. You have married a human, disgraced yourself further, proven yourself weak beyond redemption. This is what I thought when I first heard, but I have also heard other stories. That you saved this human's life. That you teach human children with patience and kindness. That humans respect you and defend you. That you have found happiness. I am old now, Grusha. Old enough to wonder if the clan's way is the only way. Old enough to regret the daughter I lost to rigid thinking. I cannot undo what was done. The clan would never accept you back, even if you wanted to return. But I wanted you to know that your mother thinks of you. That I am proud of the strength it took to follow your heart rather than our laws. Be happy, daughter. That is all a mother can wish for her child in the end. Kushka, when Grusha finished reading, she was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Nathan pulled her into his arms and held her while she sobbed, great heaving cries that seemed to come from somewhere deep and wounded. She is proud of me, Grusha gasped when she could speak. After everything, she is proud. Of course she is, Nathan said gently. How could she not be? You are amazing. I thought I would never hear from her again, never know if she thought of me, if she regretted casting me out. Now you know, and maybe this is a beginning. Maybe your mother reaching out will inspire other orcs to question the old hatreds. Maybe. Grusha pulled back, wiping at her eyes. I want to write back to her. Is that foolish? Not at all. She is your mother. You should write to her. Grusha crafted a careful response, telling her mother about the farm, about Nathan, about the life she had built. She wrote about the children she taught and the community that had accepted her. She wrote about being happy, truly happy, for the first time she could remember. She did not know if Kushka would write back, did not dare hope for more than this one fragile contact. But it was something, a tiny bridge across the vast gulf between human and orc worlds. Autumn came again, marking a full year since Grusha had first appeared at Nathan's river to bathe. They celebrated the anniversary by returning to that spot at dawn, both of them standing on the bank where everything had begun. You remember the first time you saw me here? Grusha asked. I thought you were the saddest, most frightened thing I had ever seen, Nathan admitted. And I thought that if I could do one decent thing, one kind thing, maybe I could remember how to be human again. And do you? Remember how to be human? He smiled and pulled her close. I remember how to be alive, how to hope and dream and love. You taught me that, Grusha. You taught me too. You taught me that kindness is not weakness, that mercy is strength, that love is worth fighting for." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the river with gold and rose, and thought about how far they had come. A year ago, Grusha had been alone and desperate. Nathan had been hollowed out by grief. Now they had each other, had a home and community, had a future bright with possibility. "I want to leave soap and a towel again," Nathan said suddenly, "for someone else who might need it. This place gave us our beginning. I want it to be a place of hope for others too." Grusha loved him more in that moment than she thought her heart could contain. "That is perfect. Let us make it a tradition." So they placed soap and a towel on the flat rock by the river, just as Nathan had done a year ago, and left them there for any traveler who might need them. It became something they did regularly, maintaining those small offerings of comfort and care. The years passed in a gentle progression of seasons and growth. Nathan and Grusha's farm became known throughout the region as a place of hospitality and learning. They took in travelers who needed shelter, taught skills to anyone who wanted to learn, and slowly, carefully, began to bridge the divide between human and orc communities. Other orcs heard about Grusha and came to see for themselves if the stories were true. Some were hostile, some were merely curious, but a few stayed, finding work on neighboring farms or starting their own small homesteads. The presence of orcs in the valley became less unusual, less frightening to the human inhabitants. Not everyone was happy about these changes. There were still those like Thomas Green who clung to their prejudices, who muttered about contamination and decline. But they were increasingly in the minority, drowned out by the voices of those who had benefited from orcish strength and knowledge, who had learned to see past skin color to the person beneath. Nathan and Grusha never had children of their own, their biological differences making that impossible, but their house was never empty. They became unofficial foster parents to several orphan children, both human and orc, giving them a home where difference was celebrated rather than feared. Annie, the red-haired girl who had been so fascinated by Grusha from the beginning, grew up to become a mediator between human and orc communities, using the lessons of compassion and understanding she had learned on the farm. Felicity continued teaching, incorporating orcish history and culture into her curriculum, raising a generation of children who saw diversity as strength rather than threat. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Grusha stood once more at the river where it had all begun. They were older now, Nathan's hair gone fully silver, Grusha's face marked with fine lines around her eyes and mouth. But they moved together with the ease of long partnership, finishing each other's sentences, anticipating each other's needs. "You ever regret it?" Nathan asked as they watched the sunrise paint the water with color. "Staying here, binding yourself to me," Grusha looked at him with eyes full of love and laughter. "Every single day." His face fell in shock and she laughed, the rich sound he had grown to cherish. "I regret that I did not find you sooner," she continued, taking his hand. "That we did not have more time together. But staying, loving you, building this life, those are the best decisions I ever made. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Nathan Garrett." "And you are the best thing that ever happened to me," he said softly. "You saved me, Grusha, in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other." They kissed as the sun climbed higher, two souls from different worlds who had found in each other a home more real than any place or people. Their love had not been easy, had required courage and sacrifice and stubborn determination. But it had been worth it, worth every struggle and hardship. On the flat rock by the river, soap and a towel waited for the next traveler who might need them, a small offering of hope and kindness. And in the valley, the farm thrived, a testament to what could be built when love conquered fear, when compassion triumphed over prejudice. Nathan and Grusha walked back to their house hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future might bring, secure in the knowledge that they would face it together. Around them, the world was changing, slowly but surely, becoming a place where human and orc could live in peace, could be neighbors and friends and even family. It was not perfect, that future they were building. There were still conflicts and misunderstandings, still voices of hatred trying to drown out voices of love. But every day, more bridges were built, more walls came down, more hearts opened to the possibility of change. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness, with soap and a towel left by a river for a stranger who needed them. That one small gesture had rippled outward, touching lives in ways Nathan could never have imagined when he first saw that frightened orc woman bathing in his river. Grusha never forgot that first morning, never forgot the shock of finding those simple gifts waiting for her. In a life that had taught her to expect cruelty from humans, Nathan's kindness had been revolutionary, world-changing. It had opened a door she had not known existed, to a future she had never dared dream of. Now, years later, living in that future, she made sure to pass that kindness forward. Every traveler who came to their door found welcome and shelter. Every person who needed help found willing hands. Every child who wanted to learn found patient teachers. The farm became a beacon of hope in a world still learning to move past old hatreds. And at the center of it all were Nathan and Grusha, two people who had found in each other something powerful enough to change the world, one small kindness at a time. As they grew older together, their love only deepened, weathering storms both literal and metaphorical. They faced harsh winters and failed crops, suspicious neighbors and resentful relatives. They faced the challenges of aging bodies and changing times. But they faced it all together, partners in every sense of the word. When Nathan's hair went white and his hands grew gnarled with arthritis, Grusha cared for him with the same tenderness he had shown her when she was wounded and alone. When Grusha's old injuries began to trouble her, making her limp on cold mornings, Nathan was there with warm compresses and gentle massage. They grew old together in the house by the river, surrounded by the community they had helped build, the lives they had touched, the love they had shared so freely. And when their time finally came to leave the world, they left it better than they had found it, richer for their presence, changed by their courage. But that end was still far in the future on this particular morning, as Nathan and Grusha worked side by side in their garden, planting seeds for the next season. The sun was warm on their backs, the soil was rich and dark beneath their hands, and somewhere in the distance they could hear children's laughter. "You know what I am most grateful for?" Grusha asked, sitting back on her heels to wipe sweat from her brow. "What?" Nathan asked, looking up from the row of beans he was planting. "That I decided to bathe in your river that morning, that I came back the next day and the day after that I was brave enough to accept your gifts and foolish enough to trust a human I did not know." She smiled at him, her whole heart in her eyes. "Every good thing in my life came from that choice, from your kindness, from the soap and towel you left for a stranger." Nathan crossed to where she knelt and kissed her forehead gently. "Every good thing in my life came from you being brave enough to accept them, from you choosing to stay, to trust, to love me despite every reason not to. I left those items hoping to do one decent thing. I never imagined they would bring me you." "The best things in life are the ones we never imagine," Grusha said wisely. "The ones that surprise us, that change us, that make us better than we were. You have made me so much better than I was, and you have made me who I always should have been." They returned to their planting, working in comfortable silence, two hearts beating in rhythm, two lives woven together so thoroughly that neither could imagine existing without the other. The seeds they planted would grow and flourish, fed by rich soil and careful tending, just as their love had grown from that first small seed of kindness by the river. And somewhere in the forest, a young orc woman on the run from her clan stumbled across the river, saw the soap and towel waiting on the flat rock, and stood frozen in disbelief that anyone would leave such things for a stranger. She looked around cautiously, expecting a trap, but found only peaceful farmland and the distant sound of laughter. With shaking hands, she reached for the soap, and in that moment the cycle began again. Another life changed by a simple act of compassion, another door opened to possibility, another story beginning in the same place where Nathan and Grusha's had begun all those years ago. The orc never forgot that kindness, just as Grusha had never forgotten. And years later, she would tell her own children about the soap and towel by the river, about the human who had taught her that kindness transcended species, that love was stronger than hate, that hope could be found in the smallest gestures. The story rippled outward, generation after generation, changing hearts and minds, building bridges where there had been only walls. And it all traced back to one man, one orc, one dawn, and one simple choice to be kind to a stranger in need. Nathan and Grusha's legacy was not measured in wealth or land or achievements, though they had plenty of all three. Their true legacy was measured in changed lives, in children who grew up knowing that differences were not divisions, in communities that learned to see each other as neighbors rather than enemies. They built a world where an orc could bathe in a human's river without fear, where soap and a towel could be left for anyone who needed them, where love mattered more than the color of one's skin or the shape of one's teeth. And every dawn, when the sun rose over that river, it illuminated a world made better by their presence, brighter for their love, richer for the simple truth they had lived so fully. That kindness is never wasted, that compassion is never foolish, and that the smallest gesture can change everything for someone who needs it most. This was the story of Nathan and Grusha, of soap and a towel and a love that conquered worlds. It was a story of hope and courage, of mercy and strength, of two lonely souls who found in each other the home they had always been searching for. And it was a story that would never truly end, as long as there were people willing to show kindness to strangers, willing to see past difference to the shared humanity beneath, willing to believe that love could triumph over fear if only they were brave enough to reach for it. The farm by the river stood as a testament to that truth, and would stand for generations to come, a beacon of what was possible when hearts opened and walls came down. And on a flat rock by the water's edge, soap and a towel waited, ready for the next traveler, the next story, the next beginning that would change the world one small kindness at a time. Nathan squeezed Grusha's hand as they surveyed their life's work, the garden growing strong, the farm prospering, the community thriving around them. They had built something beautiful together, something that would outlast them both, a legacy of love in a world that desperately needed it. "Thank you," Nathan said softly, "for coming to my river that morning, for staying, for loving me." "Thank you," Grusha replied, "for the soap and the towel, for seeing me when everyone else saw only a monster, for teaching me what love really means." They stood together in the garden they had planted, under the sun that warmed them both equally, in the world they had helped reshape through simple, stubborn, revolutionary kindness. And they were happy, deeply and completely happy, in the life they had built together from soap and a towel and a love that refused to be denied. This was their happily ever after, earned through courage and maintained through daily choice, as real and solid as the ground beneath their feet. And it was everything they had ever needed, everything they had ever wanted, everything they had ever dreamed a life could be. The story of the man who left soap and a towel, and the orc who never forgot it, was a story of transformation and hope. It proved that even in a world divided by fear and hatred, love could find a way. That kindness could build bridges where force had only built walls. That two people from different worlds could create something beautiful together if they were willing to be brave. And every morning when dawn touched the river with gold, that truth shone bright and clear, a promise that tomorrow could always be better than yesterday, that change was possible, that love would win in the end. Nathan and Grusha had shown the way. Now it was up to others to follow, to choose compassion over cruelty, understanding over ignorance, love over fear. The path was there, well worn by two people who had walked it faithfully, making it easier for those who came after. And somewhere in the distance, children played without caring whether their friends were human or orc, proving that the next generation had learned the lesson well. The world was changing, slowly but surely, becoming the world Nathan and Grusha had always believed it could be. They had started with soap and a towel. They had built a universe of love and acceptance. And they had shown everyone who knew their story that kindness was never wasted, that every small gesture mattered, that hope was always worth holding on to. This was their story, their truth, their gift to a world in need of both. And it would endure long after they were gone, carried forward by everyone whose life they had touched, everyone who had learned from their example, everyone who chose to leave their own soap and towel for the next stranger who needed it. The river flowed on, eternal and unchanging, witness to love stories and new beginnings, to transformations both small and profound. And on its banks, a farm stood strong, a home filled with love, a testament to what two brave hearts could build together against all odds. Nathan and Grusha's love story was one for the ages, a tale of hope and courage that would be told and retold, passed down through generations, inspiring others to be brave, to be kind, to choose love even when fear seemed safer. They had lived their truth fully and without apology. They had loved each other deeply and without reservation. They had changed their world through the simple revolutionary act of seeing each other as people first, worthy of dignity and respect and love. And they had never forgotten where it all began. At a river, at dawn, with soap and a towel and a choice to be kind to a stranger. That choice had made all the difference.